I called my cousin, he's also in high school, and I said, hey, do you have any ideas of what I should write about? And he said, dude, just use ChatGPT. So, but I tried, didn't work. Reading this book, I went through the whole gamut of emotions. At points I smiled, I laughed, I got really, really angry, and I might have shed a tear or two. And reading this book, I felt, oh my God, this is me. She's talking about me. He's talking about me. This book speaks to the special identity-splitting bias that young American Muslims live with and through in the education system. But I'm sure that minorities as a whole will find parallels in their own lives, because an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. Equal opportunity isn't long on problems and short on solutions. It spells out a very specific call to action: reform. In America, there is no greater idea than the idea that no idea or institution is above criticism, and that includes our schools. Requesting anonymity for fear of backlash, a high school bullying specialist for over 20 years informs our authors that, quote, unless something is extremely hateful, we have to allow kids to have religious opinions that are still heavily hurtful. Readers learn that the most sacred American institution, our public education system, suffers from an inconspicuous absence of controls to safeguard religious minorities from discrimination. Healthcare, taxes, our veterans, national security, these are staple subjects of our national roundtable. But it crosses few people's minds that bullying is as pressing and as universal of an issue as any of the others. The generational aftershock of bullying shreds the kind of social cohesion we need to live together peacefully. And bearing all of that in mind, readers feel nothing less than astonishment at the fact that federal law still, as it currently stands, does not touch upon bullying in the school system. Our authors walk us through how freedom of hate speech is protected, even at the cost of its victims. Imagine a guidance counselor having victims reconcile with their victimizers by reframing hate speech as a, oh, they didn't mean it kind of slip. Imagine your counselor telling you, no, that's not Islamophobia. He was just having a bad day. You should make up. The onus is thrown on the bullied to patch up, not on the bully. And looking back at my own experience, it made me realize, holy shoot, I did learn that from my teachers. To discount hate, however real. And to a young American Muslim, hate becomes just a forgivable lapse in discretion and not bigotry to be tackled. But the problem with discounting hate is that it also makes peace cheap. And from my own experience, I remember when I was 6 years old and my classmates found out that I was Muslim. And I say found out because Islam was something that a second grader learned to hide. I was picked on day after day, bus ride after bus ride, because they told me Muslims kill people. And now that I look at it, somehow, this bullying, this mistreatment, I accept it as a fact of life, that this is just the way my life is going to be. And I have to learn to suck it up. And I was grateful that I didn't have it nearly as bad as other people in America who looked more Muslim than me, women in hijab, and even our Sikh brothers and sisters in turbans. After all, Islamophobia across America was manifesting itself in violent attacks against those who visibly appeared to be Muslim. I learned, in short, to clam up and count my blessings. But this book struck a chord with me because growing up Muslim, you learn very quickly how to act. As the book covers, you hide your holidays, you say you're vegetarian because it's easier than explaining halal. You decline alcohol, not as a matter of religious obligation, but as a matter of taste. You use extended bathroom breaks so you can find a corner to pray in. And you muzzle yourself to your coach about your fast so you don't feel like you've let the team down. You act because you try to go along, to get along. And all my life, publicly, I tried not to have a religious association. I was just Indian. And I never said I wasn't Muslim. I never denied it. And for the most part, being brown, I was never asked. Our authors are clear and quick in pointing out that change, in all forms, begins at home. Tell me it isn't so. Bias is getting bussed in from somewhere. And for Muslims, minorities, and educators alike, our fears are not just limited to the table talk at home, because now we have to contend with AI, artificial intelligence. So this book was a bestseller on Amazon in 3 categories. But one of the categories it's an accomplishment, but do you know what category, one of the categories, it was a bestseller in? This book was a bestseller in terrorism. Yep, data reveals. A book about equal opportunity, written by young American Muslims, is automatically bucketed into the terrorism category. Now, I worked on Amazon. Was Amazon wrong for bucketing our author's success in this way? No, because it's simply based on statistical inference models that predict. People and the media have taught our algorithms that Muslims and terrorists are simpatico. And statistically, most of what's written about Muslims in the English language is garbage, associating 2 billion people with terrorism. It is a fact. Keeping a finger on America's pulse, Pew Research did a study on how favorably Americans look upon various religious groups. Not surprisingly, Muslims were all the way at the bottom, ranking slightly better than the Church of Satan. This is where America is. And I wish that I could say that these are just my hurt feelings, but these are facts. This is data. This is truth. But for all of this, I feel that this time things are different. By and large, growing up, I felt alone and stuck. And when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So I convinced myself that I wasn't emotionally imploding. I was just being tough. It is different. I'm proud of our authors, but I'm truly awestruck by all of their friends who aren't Muslim, who help raise our voices. I'm proud that all of you aren't just working towards ensuring a bigger and brighter future for Muslims, but for all kids. And honestly, I wish friends like you existed when I was in Paramus High School. Today's your day too. Some say that diversity and inclusion inherently are mutually exclusive, that the very concept of diversity is predicated on a majority and minority imbalance. But then the question becomes, if there's an imbalance, how do you equalize? You need to sympathize. You sympathize, then you humanize, and then you equalize. In any great reform, any great thrust for inclusion, be it civil rights or women's suffrage or the right to love, before America could accept its wrongs and chart a new course, it had to first humanize. And essentially, that's what this book is all about. This is why this book needed to be written. It needed to be written for the second grader who got bullied on the bus. It needed to be written for all the young Muslim girls who took their scarves off as a matter of precaution and safety and not free will. It needed to be written so that other young minorities have a handbook ready when they spearhead their own reforms. And it needed to be written for all of our parents who didn't know the kind of cage their kids were living in. It needed to be written for all of our bullies, because oftentimes bullies don't disappear, they just grow older. And if we don't tell our story, who will? Thank you.